Right, okay, boys and girls, here we go again. Another AMA, Ask Me Anything episode. What is it now? Third one, this. So, I'm a little bit late as well. So this is April's AMA, even though, what is it, like the 5th, 6th of May, something now. So, only a week late. But I have got an excuse. So I don't know if if you listened to the last episode that all the cheapskates listen to that don't donate to the podcast, where the interview I did with Johan Hari, I mentioned in the intro to that podcast, which is going to be the last intro I do as well. I'm not doing intros on the interviews anymore because I've decided that because it takes so long to do them. I don't know why I'm telling you this now. I've already done this on the last episode, but where am I up to? What was I going to say now? You see, these you already tell these episodes are a lot looser than the interview ones that go out to everybody. Like I said before, that's the irony of this podcast. Yeah, the polished good stuff, you get that for free. This shite, me rambling, you have to pay for the privilege of this. What was I saying though? Oh yeah. So the reason we're a bit late with this one is because I've had something like strep throat or something. My 5th illness this year. But last week I did have a crack at this, but I just couldn't get through it. It's not that I didn't completely lose my voice or anything, but my voice kept breaking, sound like a teenage boy, and I was coughing all over the place and drinking and stuff. And even though I'm going to sort of play fast and loose with these episodes in general, I can't leave coughing and spluttering in and like the sound of me drinking water and wetting my whistle and all that. So, yeah, I would have had to have edited that. And if I'm coughing every bleeding 2 minutes, it would have taken me forever to do it. So I was just like, oh, bollocks to this. I'll just wait till I get my voice back properly. I'm still a bit now, but I'm going to do it. We're going to actually muscle through this episode. So, where are we up to? Well, we're not up to anywhere yet, are we? We're just getting started. So right, let's crack on, shall we? Talking some right shite here. So I think we've got about four or five questions today. I'll try and squeeze all 5 in. The first AMA we did was something like 1 hour and 50, and then the last one was like 1 hour and 40. I'm only supposed to be doing about an hour for each episode, not because I'm trying to be like lazy or anything. But, at the moment, the way it is, there's only very few people actually sponsoring the podcast. And just in general, the podcast isn't that big. That even though I do get quite a lot of email from people, but not many questions, or not many questions that are sort of useful for this AMA format. So we've only just sort of scraped in there this month. That has actually been five questions coming. So, all right, enough chitty-chatting, let's just get into it. Okay, so the first question is, I suppose it's more of a get to know you or get to know me question. So there's going to be, what is it? It's going to be 2 of those this week that are just sort of, like I said, it's not all just going to be me sort of proselytizing and giving advice and stuff. It's trying to have a bit of fun with it. And the last episode, where I did, what was it I did at the end? Oh, it was not either or. What's it called? Would you rather? Someone challenged me to do a Would You Rather game. And so the same person has sent me another load of questions in, which is like a list of truth or dare questions that I'm going to be doing this week as well. So obviously I can't do the dare ones. Well, I could, but I'd just be sat here on my own doing it, a bit pointless. So I'm going to go through some of the truth ones, and so they're going to be the sort of getting to know you chitty chat questions. But then we've got some pretty good advice based questions as well. So anyway, let's jump in. First question that I've had a few times actually. So I think this was from when I did the autobiographical episode. I mentioned that I'd had a bit of a crack at going over to Hollywood to try and make it as a screenwriter. And I think I sort of brushed over it quite quickly, that episode. And I didn't actually mention what the screenplay was, what it was about, or anything like that. So I had a couple of people ask me, what was the screenplay about, and have you done anything with it, and like, why did you chuck it in the bin? Have you written anything since? All that malarkey. So anyway, I've had one. The most recent specific question related to that is someone asking me, what was the story about? What triggered you to write it? And did you ever sell the screenplay? So the reason I didn't go into this is it's fucking embarrassing. I think it is. I've told this story to people before, and they always say, "Oh, it doesn't sound that bad." Oh, it really is, though, when you think about it. So it was pretty much the first thing I'd ever sat down and written was this screenplay, and the story was, oh God, the story was about a kid. I think he was about like 17 or something like that. Remember, I'm 20. I was like 20, 21 when I wrote this. I think you fucking know it all at that age. And I was a pretentious little twat writing this. So anyway, this lad's like 17, 18 or something, and he's in a white supremacist gang. And because he's sort of new to it, he's not got all the tats and stuff yet. He's just sort of succumbed to the ideology of it. And he's getting into mischief. He's going out with this gang, and he's trying to like getting in fights and just being a racist little twat. And anyway, so he ends up in a drug rehabilitation program, and he meets a girl there, and she's sort of civilizes him, and he falls in love with her, and he's in awe of her, and she makes him want to be a better person. And it's only like, it's about halfway in or whatever that we discover that it's the girl that he meets a girl, and she's in the drug rehabilitation program because she's fucked in the head and all. She's on drugs and stuff. But anyway, halfway through, he finds out that she's Jewish. Dun dun dun. So he's a Nazi who's accidentally fallen in love with a Jewish girl, and then it's all this bullshit about him sort of being conflicted over his feelings for her and this ideology that he's involved with, and he has to try and keep it from her. She doesn't know about his past or anything like that, and so he's sort of leading this double life. And I don't know, whenever I say it, I feel embarrassed. I'm cringing now talking about it. Like I say, people say they don't think it sounds like such a bad premise, and maybe it isn't, but the way I wrote it was just, it was full of cliche. Everything was a cliche about it, and I was just being a pretentious little twat as well, because it doesn't relate to anything in my life, like Nazism or falling in love with someone that I shouldn't, or I did end up sort of addicted to drugs and stuff like that, sort of, but that all happened after I wrote this screenplay. So I wasn't writing from experience. There was nothing about this story that was sort of congruent to my personality or that was written from experience. There was just nothing. It was just disingenuous. And the reason I say that is, I remember sitting down writing this. It was when it came to it, I thought, right, I'm going to write a screenplay. I wanted to write a screenplay. So what should I write a screenplay about? And it was just sort of, I remember sitting there and thinking, well, you write a screenplay, you want to get like awards for it and stuff like that. And what I'd do good at the Oscars. And it was like, oh, well, Nazis and like Jews and the Holocaust and all that sort of thing. That always does well. That always does well at the Oscars. So we'll write something to do with that, even though I didn't know anything about it at the time. And it's such a disingenuous reason and a pretentious reason for doing something, for writing a story. And I think that's what makes me cringe about it. Maybe it is a good premise, but like I say, I remember some of the dialogue. I remember some of the scenes in there, and it was just fucking terrible. And that idea, I mean, there's a certain arrogance in that as well. Sitting down like, right, well, I'm going to write a screenplay, but we're going to have to do something that's going to win us an Oscar. So what should we write about, dickhead? And no, funnily enough, I never sold it. So I don't know if you've not heard the episode where I sort of spoke briefly about this. Even more pretentious was after I'd written the screenplay, I thought, right, well, I'm just going to go to Hollywood now and sell it like you do. And so after I'd made that decision, it was like 2 weeks between like making the decision and actually flying out to Hollywood. And I saved up a bit of money for the plane. I had like I think I took like $200, $300 with me or something like that. And then just flew out. And I had no idea of where I was going. I had no hotel, motel planned, anything like that, no accommodation, nothing. It was just like hopping in a fucking taxi to go to the supermarket, just going over to Hollywood. And I didn't take any clothes with me. I didn't have any plans, didn't take any clothes with me. Nothing. It was just it was literally the clothes on my back, a backpack with a screenplay in it, and like a sandwich and some water or whatever. And what's even worse about it is the reason I did that wasn't because I didn't have the means to take anything else with me. I could have done. I had a suitcase, could have took loads of clothes with me. But I thought it'd make a good story. It was like, oh, you know, if I just go over to Hollywood with a backpack and a screenplay in it, that'll be my victory story one day. I can tell people about it. So even that was the poverty of the situation was falsified. I made it up because I was trying to sort of manufacture this romanticized image when I got over there. And when I did get over there, that's what I did. I remember trying to ring in some studios and trying to get them to read the screenplay. And I even came up with a bullshit story, like a sob story, because I wanted them to either be inspired or feel pity or whatever. I think it was because you need to have an agent for them to look at your screenplay, purely for like legal reasons. And it's because if I just turn up with a screenplay and they read it and then they say no thanks, and then a couple of years later a film comes out that I think was similar to my plot, then I can sue them and say, well, they stole that idea off me and turned me down years ago. So I think you need an agent to sort of mediate it legally. And so I tried to bypass this by coming up with this bullshit story, telling them all that, you know, I was so poor or whatever that I could only afford a plane ticket to New York. I couldn't afford one all the way to LA. So I got the plane from England to New York and then hitchhiked all the way to LA. But even then, none of them were interested. They weren't buying it. It was all just like, well, yeah, that's great and everything, but you're still going to have to go home and get an agent. And so just everything about it, I was just being a pretentious little twat. And so I didn't deserve to sell it. I didn't deserve to sell it because I was being disingenuous. I was disingenuous in the way I put the story together, and I was disingenuous in my execution of trying to get somebody to buy it. And so, yeah, I didn't deserve it, and I never sold it. And I did bin that screenplay, and I'm fucking glad. I hope no one's found it, or like it'll turn up in a museum one day, like the Museum of Shit Screenplays that never got published. And yeah, I don't miss it. I don't even feel like, 15 years distance between me and that screenplay now. A lot wiser, more knowledgeable about those particular subjects. And I probably could go back into that story and redo it and make it better, but I've just got no interest, not in that one. But funnily enough, I have actually written other stuff since then. So even though I did quit when I got back home from Hollywood, I sent it off to a couple of other agents, and they weren't interested. They said they didn't like it or whatever. And then I saw my ass and quit. But then a few years later, when I ended up working as a presenter for a local radio station, there was like doing little media experiments and stuff there, and got involved with a couple of guys who were sort of fledgling directors in the film industry, and they've actually put a couple of films out since, and they're doing quite well for themselves. But they sort of reignited my interest in it. And through working with those guys, there's actually a little film, a little 10-minute film online that I starred in, or co-starred in, that they made about two gay guys that fall in love at a radio station, and another pretentious. Oh, what was it called? It was called Mixed Signals. That's what it was called. Fucking hell. Anyway, so yeah, they reignited my interest in like the film industry and stuff. And then I had a crack at writing a couple more screenplays. I ended up writing a pilot for a TV show and a film as well, a feature-length film. And I've got to say, both stories, even though I must have written them, I'm like 35 now. I got into that when I was about 27, 28 at the radio station. So I must have wrote them maybe 7, 6, 7, 8 years ago. And yeah, still to this day, you know, after all this time, I still like the stories that I've written. I still think there's genuinely something in them, but I just haven't followed it up. I don't know, got distracted with other things, and I don't know, maybe I just don't believe it'll happen. I think another reason is the two guys that I work with, Dean Lyons and Ray Bogdanovich. And Lyons and Bogdanovich, that's their title that they go by. They seem to have a lot of piss fighting about going on. They were like dedicated screenplay writers. That's what they did all day, every day. They got together and they wrote stories and they just bang out screenplays one after another. And they've sold some, and then deals fall through, and then they've sold others, and then they've been in limbo for a couple of years, and then that contract's fallen through. I know they've got one screenplay that's been optioned or something, but they don't know if it's going to get made into a film. When it gets optioned, it means it just sits in a fucking drawer somewhere until someone can be asked getting round to making it. But the contract they've got, they don't actually get paid until it gets made into a film. So I'm not interested in doing that. Like the film and TV industry, I just think they're a mess. I'm not interested in doing that. So I keep toying with the idea of maybe turning them into like a novel, adapting them into a novel and maybe doing that. But I'm too busy piss fighting about doing this at the moment. So yeah, anyway, that's the story of my screenplays. So yeah, very interesting. Right, anyway, moving on. Right, okay, so it's quite a long question, this, and even this is a sort of a distillation of a much longer email. Like I said in one of I think it was in the first episode, the first AMA I did, the idea with this was I get a lot of questions that are similar in nature, and so the idea was to sort of take all the questions that are similar and then distill them down to a single question, and one that would be sort of universally applicable. So I've not had this question in many different guises. I've only had this question as this one question put to me now, and it's a relationship question. And you know, I'm not a relationship guru or any. Don't profess to be. It's not my field, that, and this sort of falls outside of the realms of mental health. But the reason I've chosen to answer it is because I think it's possibly something that a lot of people could relate to, but also, so me and Leanne have had two major fallouts during our relationship. So we've been together like nearly 11 years on and off, 12 years or something like that, with two major fuck ups along the way. And we're still together, and I can't give you details about what happened between us. I'd like to. It doesn't bother me. I'm quite happy. I'm open to talk about those things. But, you know, Leanne's always said that's you know, she's happy with me being transparent about most things, but that's one thing she wants to keep between us. However, there's parallels between what happened with us and this question that's been sent in. I can sympathise with it, and I think it can help. So I'm going to have a crack at it. Anyway, so it says, my wife and I were married 9 years before I had an emotional affair for almost a year. We separated but continued to live together for financial reasons. Since we separated almost 3 years ago, we have not been intimate, the thought of it causing too much pain for my wife to deal with. About a year ago, we put together an agreement to outline sexting and hooking up with other people. She has hooked up with 2 guys over a couple of weekends and been out on one other date. I am happy that she has had these experiences to help her self-esteem and feel desired by someone who doesn't cause her pain. But I am also very, very jealous as I love her, and I have not had a similar opportunity with anyone as yet, though that may change soon. I love her so much and want to repair the damage to her heart and soul and hope that one day she can forgive me. However, as you might expect, she hasn't felt the same way and may not ever. I am so sorry and sickened by my behaviour. I know I was being a total arsehole. I wanted to believe that my love for her was and is real, and my commitment to her and our future is real. However, I struggle a lot with opening up and putting my feelings into words and talking openly about the affair and the problems our marriage was having. I know my wife needs this from me, and I desperately want to give her all she needs. Right, so let's sort of pick this apart a little bit. So I think the first thing about this situation that's advantageous for you is that you guys are still living together, because that sort of gives you the privilege of, or the advantage of, you're not, distance. When people sort of do these trial separations and stuff, or they break up and just don't live together anymore, it creates distance and you sort of fall out of sight, out of mind, that kind of thing. Whereas I think the fact that you guys are still living together, that's going to sort of work to your advantage, because you're still with one another. She's not going to be able to forget about you so easily. However, that is sort of being offset by the fact that she's sort of out dating people, because she's in that situation, she's likely to find somebody else and get a spark with somebody else. So sort of cancelling each other out, those two things. I think maybe two things. First is you need to be acting quickly. Yeah, you need to be sort of striking while the iron's hot with this, because what was it? You've been living together. What was it? 3 years. Yeah, separated 3 years ago, but still living together, and she's dating. So it's like, fucking hell, at any moment. I mean, I don't know if you two are still sort of fucking winding each other up when you're in each other's presence or whatever. But she's out dating other people. She's likely to click with somebody else. But also, after 3 years, any fucking moment, she could just turn around and be like, oh, I've had enough of this. I want to move out. So, yeah, you need to be acting quickly. But I think the other thing is, the one that's standing out more for me about this situation is, I think this dating arrangement bullshit is a bad idea. This idea of, what does it say here? About a year ago, we put together an agreement to outline sexting and hooking up with others. Fucking hell. And she's hooked up with 2 guys over a couple of weekends, been out on a date with another, and you've not been out with anybody. And that's just like, well, women can click the fingers and get guys to come running. It doesn't work that way for guys. No matter how attractive, how much like Brad Pitt you look from the 90s, right? You are not going to be able to click your fingers and be going on dates with women at the same rate as a girl. It's so easy for girls to get dates. So you're already at a disadvantage there. But the other thing is, all you're communicating, if you make that sort of bullshit agreement with your girlfriend or your ex or the fucking woman you're supposedly in love with, right? If you make an agreement with her that it's okay for her to go out and date, I understand that you want her to be happy and that you maybe think it's good for her self-esteem to go on these dates. But seriously, all you're communicating by giving her permission to do that is, yeah, I'm happy for you to sleep around. It's like, I don't value you that much. While she's out there on a date with someone, you're at home with your feet up, not bothered. And that doesn't communicate that you want her back. It communicates that you're over her, you don't give a shit or whatever. And I think as well, you know, while she's out with somebody else, you could be the one taking her out as well. So you're allowing somebody else to be creating potential with this girl where you could be creating potential with her. Anyway, but we'll sort of get to that in a minute. So the other thing is, it sounds like there's been, like, your communication issues. It sounds like she doesn't know why it happened. And I'm guessing you don't know why it happened either. Why you've had this emotional affair with another woman. So I think the first thing you need to do before you even think about communicating with her and trying to explain the situation to her, before you can make sense of it for her, you need to be able to make sense of it yourself. So you need to be figuring out why it happened. You know, why did you have an emotional affair? And the other the thing I'll say about this situation, right? This was something that I had to do with Leanne. When you break up with somebody, and Leanne broke up with me, yeah? Both times. It's easy when somebody breaks up with you to blame them for it. It was something they did. It was all them. Do you know what I mean? Like, we don't like to take responsibility. So that, like, I say the second time that me and Leanne split up, for me, it was just my initial reaction to it all was it was just being fucking selfish and like she's too mature, she's too distant or whatever. But all I was doing in that situation, I was denying my role in why she was distant, in why I felt she was treating it in an immature manner or whatever. Especially with women, I don't think women tend to make reckless sort of spur of the moment decisions about ending a relationship. I think women tend to think this through and they go over it a lot in the mind. They really figure it out before they make any sort of decision like that. They don't do it lightly, even when it comes to like cheating. If a woman cheats on a guy, I think it's rarely that she's just a dirty slapper that just can't get enough dick. There's usually a reason for it. There's usually something you're doing or not doing. I know that's not the situation with you guys. But yeah, the point I'm trying to make is you need to figure out the true dynamics of the situation. You need to figure out why you had an emotional affair. What was she not doing for you? Or what were you not doing for her that led you to seek out this other woman? I suppose that's sort of what I'm getting at. It's easy for you to say, let's say it was sort of a sex thing, an affection thing or whatever. Let's just say your girlfriend wasn't very affectionate towards you. And so it's easy for you to go, oh, well, she wasn't very affectionate towards me, so I went and fucking got it from somewhere else. But it's like, whoa. Hang on a minute. What else is going on there? You can't just say, well, she wasn't affectionate towards me, so I fucked off. It was like, why wasn't she affectionate towards you? That's when you turn the mirror on yourself and think, well, was something I was doing making her not affectionate towards me? Do you know what I mean? You've got to go that little bit deeper about it. And you've got to be brutally honest, because it's going to be no good for you. If you're going to make sense of this for her, like I say, you need to make sense of it for yourself first. But it's no good if you're just going to go back to her and all you figured out that it was all her fault in the first place. Because trust me, it's unlikely she's going to see it that way. So yeah, I think when it comes to doing that as well, it's one of them where you've just got to be brutally honest with yourself and with her, because you'll know why you did it. It could be a million reasons, it could be one or two reasons or whatever. Like I say, even when you've when you're thinking about what maybe you did wrong, what did you do to fuck up the dynamic, you've just got to be brutally honest about it. Which I suppose it's easier to do that to yourself than it is for you to do that to her, especially when you're trying to win her back, and you're going to be thinking, well, maybe this reason, this honest reason that I've come up with for doing what I did, if I tell her that, it's going to really fucking hurt her, and it might even make the situation worse. But I still think you've got to be honest. I think it's because, one of the reasons people suffer like hurt and trauma for so long, the reason why it sticks with them, they keep like going back over the incident, they can't get over it, is because a lot of the time they can't make sense of it. They don't know why it happened. I think that's the case with you. You've had this emotional affair, you've never really talked about it, you've not explained it to her, so all she knows, her narrative at the moment, is that she was in a marriage for 9 years with somebody, then fucking out of the blue, for no apparent reason, he goes off and has this emotional affair with somebody. And she can speculate a million different reasons why that may have happened, and she could be blaming herself, she could be blaming you, but until you communicate that with her, she's got nothing to grasp hold of. She's got no narrative. She doesn't know why it happens. There's nothing for her to learn from it. That's when we get over trauma. That's when we get over things that have hurt us, is when we give it meaning and we learn from it, because then we can move forward. It's like we're with meaning and narrative attached to it, we're now armed to deal with it if it comes up again. So we don't need to keep looking back out over our shoulder and analysing it and speculating about it. And so that's why you need to be brutally honest about it, is so that when you actually do finally communicate to her what happened, why you did it, she's got a honest to God account that she can internalise and that makes sense and that she can genuinely learn from. Sort of reminds me of so there's a book by a guy called Jack Kent. It's a kid's book. It's called There's No Such Thing as a Dragon. First stumbled across this but by a guy called Jordan Peterson, Canadian psychologist, talking about it. And it's such a brilliant analogy for relationships and the way they work and, well, why they fall apart as well. This idea of not openly acknowledging the problems as they exist and how they sort of spiral out of control when you do that. So the story in this book is there's a kid called Billy Bixby. He wakes up in the morning. He's like there's a dragon at the end, sat on the end of his bed, about the size of a kitten or something. And he wakes up and gives it a little pat on the head or whatever. And then he goes downstairs and he tells his mum. He says, there's a dragon upstairs. And she says, don't be so silly, there's no such thing as dragons. So he goes back upstairs and he's getting dressed. And the dragon's sort of trying to get his attention. It wants him to pet it again, but he ignores it because he thinks, well, my mum said it doesn't exist, so I'm not gonna stroke something that doesn't exist. So he goes downstairs and the dragon follows him down, but it's got a bit bigger now. It's about the size of a dog. And then he goes into the kitchen and the dragon sits right on the dinner table. And yeah, Billy's mum, she ignores it and she tries serving him his breakfast. I think she's making him pancakes. She serves him pancakes, but then the dragon eats them. And then so she makes more, and then the dragon eats those as well. And then it keeps eating them until she runs out of pancake mix. She's still not acknowledging it's there. Then I think Billy goes back upstairs or something. He thinks he's finishing off, getting ready for school, or I don't know what he's doing. Anyway, when he comes back down, the dragons completely fills the hallway. And he says to his mum, he says, look how big the dragon is now. And she says, don't be silly. There's no such thing as dragons. Anyway, his mum, she's cleaning the house. It takes her all morning, takes forever, because the dragon's so big in the hallway, no one can get anywhere. So she's like crawling in and out of the windows to like clean each room and stuff because she can't get past it. So even though she's not acknowledging the dragon, like she's in denial about it, she's still behaving as if it's there. You know, it's changed her behaviour, whether she likes to sort of acknowledge its existence or not. Yeah? Then, like by the afternoon or something, the dragon's filled the whole house. It's like bleeding that scene in Alice in Wonderland. It's like its head's out the front door, its tail's out the back door. It's sort of like wearing the house on its back like a turtle shell. And then like an ice cream truck or something goes past the house. And the dragon can smell the ice cream and it goes chasing after the truck with a bleeding house on its back right down the street. And Billy's dad comes home from work, pulls up outside and the house is gone. So he's driving around the neighbourhood looking for it. He finally finds it, house on top of a bleeding dragon. And he's like, what the hell's going on here? I don't think he says what the hell in a kid's book, but he's like, what's going on? And then Billy says, it's the dragon. And then he pats the dragon on the head. And then his mum's just about to say, she's no such thing as a... But as she's saying it, the dragon starts to shrink. And because Billy's acknowledged it again, and he's patted it on the head. And then, yeah, before you know it, he's paying it attention and stuff and stroking it, and then it shrinks back to the size of a kitten again. And the moral of that story, of course, is, you know, whenever a problem arises in life or whatever, you have to acknowledge it, you have to deal with it straight away. Because when it first arises, most problems when they first arise are small problems, and it's by us burying our head in the sand and ignoring them that the problem sort of grows in the background. And so me and Leanne have got a no dragons agreement in our relationship. So anytime a problem comes up, she does something to annoy me, I do something to annoy her, we have to tell each other that day. The day that it arises, we can't sit on it. The moment we do something to piss the other person off, we have to say it before we go to bed that night. So I've got an example of this that happened just the other week. So we were round at my mum's house, and I can't remember what we'd gone round for. We had like a meal or something, and it was busy and noisy, and the kids are noisy and all that. And everyone's talking to each other, talking over each other. And I was showing Leanne something on my phone, and I got a text message while we were there. And then she apparently said to me, who's text you or something. But at the same time that she's asked me that, my mum's waving a fucking finger in my face, asking me something. And so I answered my mum and didn't answer Leanne's question. And she took that as me avoiding the question. And so a bit later on, about an hour later, we're on the drive home, and I could tell something was wrong with her, and I was like, hang on, dragon alert. I was like, come on, what's up with you? And she told me, she said she felt a bit suspicious that I'd got this text message while I was showing her my phone, and then it seemed to her like she'd asked me, hang on, who's texting you, sort of thing, and I'd sort of avoided the question and turned to my mum to avoid addressing the situation. And she'd misinterpreted the situation, and it wasn't like that at all. It was just, it's that fucking busy in the house. My attention just got drawn elsewhere, and then I'd completely forgot about what she'd asked me, because to me it was insignificant. It was just a fucking text off somebody. And so the thing with that is, that's a potential dragon there. You know, if Leanne hadn't have addressed that with me straight away, let's say she'd slept on it and she's like, who fucking text him now? I bet that was a girl, that. You know, not like my job in the past and all that. Could be anyone. And maybe she'd like left it for a week or whatever, and then every time my phone chimes, she's thinking, I wonder who that is, because I bet it's a girl. I wonder if that's that fucking same girl texting him. Every time my phone chimes, it's winding her up more and more and more. And then that's your dragon growing in the background. She's not acknowledging the dragon. And I mean, that could go in any sort of direction. She suddenly starts thinking that there's something going on. I've avoided this text message, so I'm hiding something. Maybe it's a girl. And so every time I walk out the door, then it's like, where the fuck is he going? Or it could be even worse. She could be out somewhere, and then, you know, maybe a guy's chatting her up or whatever. Usually she'd be like, well, I'm not interested. I'm in a solid relationship. But now she's thinking, well, he's fucking up to no good anyway, acting suspicious. So maybe I will let this guy take my number. Because she'd let the dragons go, because we've let the dragons grow, but because we've acknowledged it straight away and explained the situation to each other. And I showed her the text, and it was off a girl, but it was just like a girl mate that she knows, and it was actually this girl asking me for advice about her having bullshit problems with a boyfriend or whatever. And we'd acknowledged it. And so it just killed the problem straight away before it grew into anything. And the point I'm making is, what did you say here? You guys have been at it for 3 years. Separated 3 years ago, and not been intimate all that time, and you've not communicated with her all that time. And so, think of that. 3 years ago, you've had this emotional affair and not explained it to her. And, you know, a text message wound my missus up for it. She was dealing with it for an hour. Like, what the fuck was that? It proper bothered her for a full hour. You know, and in just that short amount of time, she'd come up with all these possible scenarios about who it was and why they were texting me and what could it possibly mean. And your missus, your wife, has been dealing with that for 3 fucking years. And you've never given her an answer. And so it's incumbent on you to, 1, to understand why she's shut down on you, and 2, to do your fucking damnedest now to try and make up for it. And so, like I say, the first thing you need to do is figure out exactly why all this bullshit happened, and then be completely honest with her about it. And again, I emphasise, and be completely honest with yourself about your role in this, how much you're to blame for this. Yeah, and like I say, not how much you're to blame for going off with this other woman, but how much whatever your reasons are for whatever your wife wasn't giving you that made you seek out this other woman, what could you have possibly done that made your wife behave towards you like that in the first place? Yeah? Then when you figured this out, you need to communicate it to her. Now, I know you said you've got a problem with communication or whatever. And so I guess sort of 2 pieces of advice on that. The first is that the obstacle is the way. Yeah, the Marcus Aurelius quote, the impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way. This idea that you feel, I'm not good at communication and I'm scared of communicating. I'm not very good at expressing my emotions or whatever. Well, motherfucker, you're going to have to slay that dragon now. Do you know what I mean? The thing you're afraid of doing, the thing you don't like doing, that's the thing you need to do now. That's the wall you need to break through in order to fix this situation. And maybe it's quite possible that it's this problem that led to it in the first place. You know, maybe your problems with communicating are what caused all this in the first place. So it may be that the only way for you to get past this now is to do the very thing that you're reluctant to do. So there's your leverage. But I'd also say that if you truly are sort of a bit of a mush mouth and you really do sort of struggle to articulate yourself properly and not say the wrong thing, then just write it down. Like you've done to me in this email. I mean, this email you sent me, much longer than this question I've read out to people here, but made perfect sense to me. So, you know, that's a good start. And it's also, it's maybe even better. It's maybe even better than sitting down and talking to her. You can get round to talking to her, but to actually put this shit down in writing does a couple of things. You know, you'll be able to really think it through, give you a chance to sort of reflect on what you say, and then you can write it down, and then you can sleep on it. Yeah? Give it a couple of days, go back to it. Does it still feel right? Am I communicating properly? Am I articulating myself in the right way? Like, make sure you fucking nailed it. And then when you hand the letter over to her that explains everything, that's good for her, because instead of it being a conversation where she can sort of not butt in, but you know what I mean? It could steer you off track. You could end up getting into a debate or a blame game or whatever. With a letter, it's all there, and she can sort of digest it all in one go, and she can go back over it, and she can read it again and again and again, and she can sort of misremember what you said. If it's just a conversation, and when you've slept on the conversation, you know, you can misremember what people said or the way they said it or whatever. But if it's documented, if it's written down, she can go over it again. And then also when she comes to you, she can clarify, she can take it point by point. She can go through this letter that she's got and say, well, hang on a minute, you wrote this here, and why did you say that, or why did this happen? And then, I don't know, I think it just sort of, it possibly lends a bit more structure to this foundation stone that you're sort of laying for sort of dealing with all this bullshit, if that makes sense. And then, yeah, finally, the thing I'd say is you sort of, let me go back here. Talking about, you mentioned not being intimate with each other or whatever. Can't find it now. Oh yeah, there. Since we separated almost 3 years ago, we've not been intimate. The thought of it causing too much pain for my wife to deal with. Gotta say, dude, scrap that shit for now. Forget sex and being intimate, even kissing. Fuck all that shit. Straight back to basics. Start dating her again. Start trying to win her over. Because that's... You're in a worse position now, yeah, than you were when you first met her. When you first met her and you first meet a girl, you're first trying to date her, she's like, who's this idiot? Don't know who you are. But, you know, you're a blank slate, and you've got there's plenty of opportunity for you to sort of build on that and impress her. But now you're working from a deficit because you've already fucked her over once, right? So it's, you know, not back to square one, it's back to square minus fucking 5 or whatever. And so it's back to basics. Start dating her again. Start trying to win her over the same way you did in the beginning. You know, in that sense, it sort of very much reminds me of, there's a book that you should probably read. All guys should read this book. It's called The Way of the Superior Man by David Data. Okay. And it's a bit woo-woo, and it's, you know, he's a bit sort of hippie-ish and stuff. And I mean, if you gave this book to anyone who's even sort of mildly on the left at all, they'd consider this a horrendously sexist book, because it's very much about sort of the, you know, it's about the dynamics between men and women, but how men should be sort of very alpha and dominate a woman, and not in a like a stupid fucking porn sense or anything, but just in the Darwinian sense, I guess. And yeah, one of the sort of tenets that David Data speaks about in there is to try and, you know, if a woman's upset about something, you've got to change her emotions and not change her mind. And so this idea of, you know, explaining everything that happened between you and this this woman you had an affair with or whatever, and why it happened. That's fine, but it's sort of logic, and it will explain things to her, and it'll lend a narrative and an explanation, and enable her to learn from and understand the situation and why it panned out the way it did. But it's not necessarily going to make her feel good about the situation, and you're not going to just talk her, through logic into liking you again. You have to change her emotions, not change her mind. You have to make her fall in love with you again. So, instead of making her want to love you by having sex with her, you need to make her want to have sex with you by loving her, if that makes sense. And so, like I say, it's back to basics, and, never mind all this bullshit about letting her go and dating other guys and stuff. First thing you need to be doing is saying, quit that shit, right? Actually, I don't want you going out with other guys because it makes me jealous and I'm still in love with you and I want to win you back. Never mind all this liberal shite of, I want you to go out and have fun with other people and build up your self-esteem. It's bullshit. Like I say, and I know it probably feels like the right thing to do, but I don't think it's the right thing to do. I think it's just communicating to her that you don't care about her anymore. So squash that shit straight away. And all this time she's spending, going out on dates with other guys, well then you need to occupy that time instead. And I'm guessing it's your wife of, 9 years or something, so you know what she likes, you know what she's into, you know the things she likes to do. So take her and do those things, and do it spontaneously as well. Don't necessarily ask for permission. You just need to ask, find out if she's free on whatever particular date, and then get something booked and try and surprise her and say, no pressure. I'm not doing this to try and get laid at the end of it or whatever. I just want to spend time with you. I just want to do the things that you enjoy doing and be there with you when you do them. So, yeah, that's my advice. It's a bit all over the place, and I've rambled a bit. Like I say, this isn't my speciality, but I think if you can filter through the ramble, I think there's some decent advice in there. Like I say, if it gets you anywhere, let me know. I'm interested in the outcome of this one, definitely. Right, okay, moving on. I've heard you mention a couple of times that one of the biggest improvements in your mental health came from improving your sleep. Why is sleep so important, and what is your sleep routine? Okay, so I'm not gonna sort of ramble on too much about the science behind it, because there's so many different studies on it. There's so many different perspectives on it. But so I guess two of the points that sort of hit home hardest for me, if we're going to sort of draw on the interviews that I've done on this podcast. So Professor Jason Ellis, the sleep expert, I think it was at Northampton University, something like that. He mentioned that, I think it might have been a study that he did, where it showed that quality of sleep is the most reliable predictor of future mental health problems, above and beyond any other factor, like diet, life situation, financial situation, whatever. The quality of your sleep is the most reliable predictor. And then the second one was, just in this episode just gone, with Johan Hari. There's something called the Hamilton Depression Scale, which is, I think it's between 0 and 51 or something on a scale. Yeah, the scale of 0 to 50, 0 to 51. 0 being you're perfectly fine, and 51 being, well, you're suicidal. And I think it was, he mentioned that antidepressants, chemical antidepressants, in general, tend to improve mood on average by about 1.8 on the Hamilton Depression Scale, whereas improving your sleep will send you up 6 points on the Hamilton scale. And likewise, if your sleep starts going to shit, you'll drop 6 points on the Hamilton scale. So it's pretty significant. As well, like bipolar bipolar disorder, that's another one. Like sleep disruption tends to be something that triggers manic episodes. And then also Elaine Hanzak, the episode we did there on postpartum depression. You listen to her story, and it's what it basically boils down to is her sleep went to shit. As soon as the baby came along, her sleep just went down the pan, and she was knackered all the time. And then after, 8 months of not sleeping, that's when she ended up having a psychotic episode. So, yes, my story as well. I think my story sort of indicative of it as well. And it's something I didn't even sort of realise really until retrospectively. But when I started losing my shit, so I was working 2 jobs at the time, and my schedule was something like I was getting up at 7 a.m. in the morning, taking my little boy to nursery. I was in work from 9 till 3. Then I'd come home, go to bed for 2 hours, wake up at 5, go get him back from nursery. Then at 6 o'clock I'd leave for my second job, which was a driving job, and I'd be out on that job till 4 in the morning. I'd come home and then sleep till 7. So I was getting 5 hours, maybe 5 hours a day, 5 hours sleep every 24 hours, but split 3 hours in the morning and 2 hours in the afternoon. I did that for 2 years, and sometimes it was better than that, sometimes it was worse. But, no doubt that sent me fucking loopy. And that's just on a physiological level, just the idea that your brain is just never getting the rest it needs, and you're always feeling sort of out of it. You're not flushing out the toxins, and all your hormones are becoming dysregulated. But I think there's also a sort of downward spiral effect on it anyway, because you just turn into a Nazi bastard. You start treating everyone around you like shit, and so that they respond to you likewise because you're being a twat, and the quality of your work suffers, just the quality of your life suffers. You just feel like shit all the time, and so you tend to start eating bad, and you're putting weight on. And I just think it's one of those. It's like a butterfly effect in that sense. So yeah, it's sort of self-evident why sleep's important. Sleep can fuck people up who are perfectly mentally healthy. And a couple of bad nights sleep can can send anyone loopy, but for people that have sort of got mental health problems, it's some serious shit. One study I'm thinking of off the top of my head, and I won't be able to quote the authors or anything, but I think sleep's even been shown to reduce the level, duration, and intensity of psychotic episodes and delusions and feelings of paranoia in people with schizophrenia. So yeah, again, it's pretty intense. So that's it. And it's ever since I interviewed Jason Ellis, it was like, right, sleep's number one for me now. So yeah, my sleep schedule. So what do I do? So I think it's different for different people about how much sleep you actually need. For me, I need about 6-7 hours in general. And so, the idea of picking a bedtime, I suppose, has got to be based on what your schedule is and how much sleep you need. Not everyone needs to get up at 6-7 o'clock in the morning. Not everyone's working. Some people can get by quite fine on 4 or 5 hours sleep. So my actual bedtime is irrelevant, but I try and get to bed between about 11 and 12 o'clock. And so the first thing I do is avoid caffeine, which it sounds kind of obvious, and a lot of people, I don't think some people actually realise how fucking bad caffeine is. I've spoken to psychologists who have said that they've had people come to them with severe anxiety, and they've tried to be these cognizant psychologists who don't just fucking throw them a pill bottle or whatever and say, take these and calm the fuck down. they actually try and figure out the lifestyle. And so they're asking him, is work stressful? Is family life stressful? Any bereavements recently? How's your financial situation? And they're like, no, fine, happy relationship, work's great, financials are fine, blah, 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 my goals. Life's fucking brilliant. But then it turns out that they're down in like 8-10 cups of coffee a day, yeah? And it's like, well, no wonder you can't fucking sleep and you're a jittery mess, because that shit'll fuck you up. So, yeah, sometimes caffeine can be the sole cause of somebody presenting with generalised anxiety disorder. So it's pretty intense. And I'm not saying cut out caffeine altogether, but whatever. But the thing you need to keep in mind is caffeine has a half-life of about 5 to 6 hours. And what that means is the half-life is how long it takes for the caffeine to break down in your system by 50%. Yeah? So you have a cup of coffee with 50 milligrams, that's got 50 milligrams of caffeine. I don't know how much is in coffee, to be honest. I think it's about that. 50 milligrams of caffeine. Then in 5 or 6 hours' time, after that cup of coffee, it'll have gone down to 25. And then 5-6 hours after that, it'll go down to 12.5. Another 5 or 6 hours, it'll go down to 6. So it fucking sticks around in your system for a long time. You don't need that. You don't need stimulants when you're going to bed. So, I'd recommend that, say if you're going to bed at like 12 o'clock like me, if you're drinking coffee or anything, you ought to be having your last one at 6 o'clock at night. My actual recommendation would be to sort of knock that shit on the head by noon. You shouldn't be needing to get caffeined up. But I understand some people need it first thing in the morning. Fine. But afternoon, come on. You shouldn't be needing caffeine to get you through the day then. So knock that shit on the head. Yeah, no coffee or tea. Tea's got about 25 milligrams of caffeine in it. Regular old breakfast tea. So don't even be having that, a brew before bed or whatever. Try and knock that shit on the head. Second thing is blue light. Okay? Basically, screens. Mobile phone screens, laptop screens, yeah? They emit blue light. So I can't remember all the sort of scientific mechanics off the top of my head, but basically, there's a hormone that gets released in the brain called melatonin, yeah? It's being released all day, I think, in like small amounts or whatever, but it begins sort of it's getting pumped out or released in bigger quantities a couple of hours before bedtime. And one of the things that control it, that's part of your circadian rhythms, is light sources. I think it's supposed to be sort of in tune with like sun up and sun down or whatever. So, as the sun goes down, and the darkness sets in, that's the trigger for melatonin to be released in the brain. That's when you start to feel tired, and that's the thing that helps you sleep. But the problem with blue light is it emulates daylight, and the blue light that's sort of pissing out of your laptop screens and your mobile phone screens, as long as that's beaming into your fucking eyes, it's telling your brain that it's still daytime, so it's not time to release the melatonin yet. So yeah, it starts fucking up your circadian rhythms, your internal body clock. And it's sort of like, I think sort of like a vicious cycle in that sense. Like, you'll be laying in bed, piss fighting about on your phone because you're thinking, well, I'm not tired, and I'm bored, so I'll play with my phone until I get tired. But it's sitting there playing with your fucking phone, with the blue light going into your eyes, which is why you're not tired, because you're telling your brain that it's still daytime. So, a couple of options there. I mean, the shit, lame, not very good option is you can get something like called a blue light filter. You can get one for Chrome. So I've got one here. What's this one called? Screen shader. You can get that for like a Chrome browser on laptops, and that just turns your laptop screen. It filters out the blue light, and so the screen I'm looking at now, it's got sort of a pinkish, reddish haze to it, and you can get them for your phones as well. But I think it's a bit of a shit way to go about it, to be honest. So what I do instead is 9 p.m. That's my cut-off point. So 9 p.m. stop piss fighting about my phone. Just put my phone down, leave it, don't do anything with it. And there's a few other things that sort of come from that. It's not just staring at the screen. But what I will say is, so put your phone on silent, but most phones now, you should be able to have a filter. So I've got a filter on mine. So if there's certain people that may need to get through to you in the middle of the night, and you should be able to put your phone on silent, but create a filter. So in case it's such and such a person's number ringing you, your phone will ring. So that's what I do. So put my phone on silent. It's still switched on. People can get hold of me if they need to, the important people. But I'm not, the triggers aren't there. The notifications aren't coming through. I can't hear them. I'm not tempted to pick it up. That's important as well, because I just think, not just with the blue light thing, but anything like social media and TV and things like that. I just think anything that sort of stimulates your brain towards the end of the night, you need to be knocking that shit on the head. So from 9 p.m. when the phone goes down, I don't bother with social media or anything like that. Websites, news sites, because I get sort of wound up by stuff and it sets me off. And I'm trying to wind down. With TV and stuff like that, I watch TV right up until 11 p.m. But after 11 p.m, if I'm going to sleep for 12, I like an hour of no light, no stimulation. Like I say, I'm going for this gradual winding down. So, but what I will do sometimes between 11 and 12 is reading. But again, don't read on your fucking phone. Don't read on your Kindle. Try and read a book, a printed book. Even in just under like dim light or whatever. And an extra bit of advice on top of that is don't read non-fiction. Anything factual, again, it's sort of it tends to get you thinking. It puts you in a sort of analytical mode, whereas fiction, I don't think fiction. You can sort of read fiction very passively, and it doesn't stimulate thought and analysis in the same way. I'm a bit sort of indifferent about like lavender and scents like that. I've tried stuff like that. I'm not sure. It smells nice and stuff, having that crap on your pillow or whatever, but it's a bit, I don't know, it's not really for me, and I'm not sure it actually does anything, but I do it occasionally. So that's sort of a half-assed recommendation, so I'll give that a go if you can be bothered. But one thing that's super important is making sure that you're sleeping in an environment that's actually dark. Again, like with the circadian rhythms, and you want to help that along. So you want your bedroom pitch black. So 2 ways to go about that. One is to get like blackout curtains, blackout blinds. But obviously, that could be a bit of a pain in the ass if you haven't already got them, especially like fitting blinds or whatever. So what I just do is get a sleep mask. You can get like a pack of 10 on Amazon, and they ship them in from China. It's like £2 for like 10 sleep masks or something, and they're perfect. Pitch black, all night. You look at a 5-star dickhead, but they definitely work, and they do seem to improve the quality of your sleep. And I think it's just because, even though like it's quite dark in our room without the sleep masks and stuff, but even with we have sort of got blackout curtains up, but still the orange from the street light still creeps in. If there's a crack in the curtain, it's still, I know it's nighttime, but it's still light pollution getting in. So yeah, I just think maybe the darker the better. So like our ancestors and that, when they were asleep, bleeding street lights and electronics and stuff like that, and cars going past the house with the headlights. You're sleeping on the savannah or in a cave or whatever, it's fucking pitch black. So that's what the masks do. So I definitely recommend them. And then the other thing is, when it comes to getting up in the morning, no snooze button bullshit. Yeah, just get the fuck up straight away. I know you might think, well, what's this got to do with like getting good sleep? It's all part of getting that circadian rhythm, that sleep schedule nailed down. And so all that groggy in bed in the morning, pressing the snooze button and sort of tossing and turning and eking it out for as long as you possibly can. Now scrap that shit. Soon as your alarm goes in the morning, get the fuck up straight away. And I mean straight away, up on your feet, open the curtains, let the light hit your face. You know, ideally they say you're supposed to do it for like 20 minutes, stand there 20 minutes, get daylight on your skin, in your eyes, whatever. I only do it for 5, just until I stop squinting and feel like I'm being blinded by the daylight or whatever. But I found that's got me into like a sharp routine. It's, whether I do fall asleep at like 11, 12, 1 o'clock in the morning, whatever, this jumping out of bed at 7 a.m. on the nose, whipping the curtains open straight away. I don't need an alarm anymore. It's my body clock is bang on 7 o'clock, and I'm up. And yeah, ever since I've sort of implemented this little routine and these rules, my sleep and just my fucking life, life is just that little bit easier. It's just that little bit easier to get through the day, just because my sleep's a little better. So yeah, that's my routine. Those are my recommendations. Right, next one, meditation. Okay, I've been trying to get into meditation for over a year now, but every time I try, I can never seem to clear my mind enough to even get started. I keep hearing how it's an amazing way of combating depression, so I really want to learn how to do it. Any tips for getting started? So, I'm gonna do I think I'm gonna do a video on this for YouTube. So this would be a good way of just sort of hashing out some of the points of what I make when I actually get round to doing this. So my first thing is, don't overstate the effectiveness of it. It's one of these things that's sort of fashionable at the moment. Say, mindfulness and meditation cures depression or whatever. No, right? Yes, the studies are promising. Yes, the whole grey matter, increasing grey matter and brain changes seems to be legitimate. Fine, whatever. However, if you're depressed because you've lost your job or you're in debt and the bailiffs are knocking on your fucking door every couple of days, meditation ain't going to fix those things. Okay, so there's a book by a news anchor called Dan Harris in America. He ended up having a panic attack live on TV. He's going through some shit and anxiety and stuff, and he turned to meditation, and then he wrote a book based on his experiences called 10% Happier. And I think that's the perfect description, the perfect succinct description of what meditation can do for you. 10% happier, I think that's the most you can hope for, just by doing it in isolation. Don't get me wrong, 10% is fucking huge. If you're going through some bullshit, you're struggling, you're deeply depressed, 10% happier is a significant amount. But I'm just not a fan of people overstating the effectiveness of depression, and it's part of the cultural zeitgeist at the minute. Everyone's trying to sell it and shove it down your neck, and it's just like, well, yes, it's great, but it's not a panacea. It's not a magic bullet. It's not a miracle cure. It's just meditation. Okay, so this question is specifically about getting started with meditation, and I can sympathise with the struggle of getting started with it. So, I mean, besides just the fact that it seems a difficult task if you've got a bit of a monkey mind. I mean, just the idea of trying to quiet your mind for some people is, well, it's too tall a hurdle to scale, I guess, or it seems like it. But the other thing that stopped me getting into it was the sort of the spiritual aspect of meditation. I'm not into that. I do appreciate some of the ideas of Buddhism and some of just the general spiritual ideas in that realm, that community or whatever. I appreciate some of the ideas, but I'm not really. I sort of see it as separate from meditation. I've got a very utilitarian view or attitude towards meditation. And like the whole meditation and mindfulness, I feel like I separate mindfulness from meditation, That's how utilitarian I am about it. Because I'm not really into the whole acknowledging the thought and labeling the thoughts as they arise. I can't be asked with that. And I mean, I tried getting started with Vipassana, which is focusing on, that's meditation where you focus on your breathing. Again, it's fine. It can be relaxing, but it's just, I don't know, it's not for me. I come at meditation from I think of it as just a pragmatic way of reducing input and stimulation. So in the sense that, like everyone's busy, like working and organising and running around doing things, and the internet and social media and watching YouTube and answering emails, and like you're doing housework, or, even if you think you're relaxing, like watching a box set, you still, cognitively, you're juggling multiple storylines and keeping track of things and characters' names, and I just think even that contributes. It's constant input, it's constant stimulation. And so for me, like I say, meditation isn't so much about like mindfulness or spiritualness. It's just fucking unplugging from the matrix for 20 minutes. One way you can do it, if you can't be asked with meditation at all, like the idea of sitting in a chair and with your eyes closed and being quiet, have a bath, hot bath, candles, relaxing music. As far as I'm concerned, that's unplugging. As long as you're not there sitting piss fighting about on your phone while you're doing it, right? If you're genuinely just relaxing, hot water, maybe stick a bit of magnesium in there. Again, I've got my own sort of magical. Let's not oversell it. I've got my own sort of recipe, or my own setup for like what I think is the perfect bath setup. Maybe we'll do that on another episode, or maybe that'll make a good YouTube video. And I think when I do that, it's fucking amazing. And so I think that's just as good as meditation. So if you really can't be arsed doing it, unplugging in any way that sort of resembles that, I'd go for. The problem with something like that, though, with like a bath, is it's a lot of piss fighting about involved. It's not easy to set up. So, yeah, this is why I've come up with my own meditation technique. Okay, it's a very, very easy to set up. It's my own patent pending technique. It's known as the sit the fuck down and shut the fuck up and relax technique. Right? So let me take you through it. Okay? Step 1. Forget trying to clear your mind. Just the idea of clearing your mind. Forget it. Either as a prerequisite or as a goal. Alright? You're never going to clear your mind. Ever. Okay? There's one state of being where your mind is perfectly clear. It's called being dead. Yeah? So scrap that concept. It's not happening. Clear your mind. Don't worry about it. It's not a goal. It's not a prerequisite. Leave it. Step 2. Sit down. Literally, yeah? Don't lie down, okay? Because if you lie down, there's a tendency to nod off. And not, again, having a bit of a kip, fine, okay, it's relaxing. But the enjoyable part of meditation is being consciously aware of your nervous system sort of calming down. And that's not what happens in sleep, is it? You are calming down, but you check out while you're calming down. You're not there for the calm down. You miss it. And then you wake up and you're fucking stressed again because you've got shit to do. So you want to be there for the calm down process. Okay? So sit down rather than lie down. You don't have to bother with all this cross-legged bollocks. Okay? Like sitting there like a monk or whatever. I don't do that. Armchair, office chair, whatever, somewhat comfortable, okay? Step 3, set a timer, okay? So I think when you're first getting into it, 5 minutes is a good start. Try and work your way up to like 20 minutes. I do between 20 minutes and half an hour, depending. But go up in 5-minute increments. Start at 5, do a week of 5, a week of 10, week of 15, etc. Okay? So set a timer. Step 4, close your eyes. Okay, I don't think that requires any further instruction. Pretty simple. Step 5. Have I just said step 5? I don't know. Well, this is step 5. So now you've got you sat there with your eyes closed. It's with most meditation, you need there's a point of concentration. Yeah. So with like Vipassana, it's focus on your breathing. With like TM, Transcendental Meditation, you get given a mantra that you say silently in your mind, and you just focus on the mantra. What I prefer to do is a sort of a version of progressive muscle relaxation. So with PMR, the idea is you tense your muscles in a particular part of your body. Say starting with your feet. So you tense the muscles in your feet for like 5 or 10 seconds. You squeeze them as hard as you fucking can. Like 5, 10, 15 seconds, whatever. And then you relax them. Okay, and then you move on to the next body part and you do the same. Tense up and then relax. Okay, and then you do that through your whole body, and it's a way of sort of relaxing. I find that instead of... I don't need to do the tensing up bit because I'm already fucking tense, right? I think people with... Well, I was going to say anxiety, but maybe with depression and anxiety will both be able to appreciate this. I'm fucking tense already, okay? So what I prefer to do instead is I just sort of consciously try to release the tension in each muscle group, yeah? Sort of focus on a particular part of the body and tell the muscles there, just like relax, relax, relax. Not out loud, just sort of thinking it, but just sort of encouraging them. You focus on that body part and you just sort of just feel into it. Just consciously let those muscles relax. That you don't need to do anything with them. They haven't got a purpose. You just sat in a chair, just relax, and then just sort of sit with that feeling for a while, and then move on to the next muscle group. So the order I use is, it's face, neck, shoulders, biceps, triceps, do both arms at the same time, forearms, hands, then chest, stomach, upper back, lower back, hips, groin, and so groin like perineum, your arsehole, yeah? We got to relax all them bits down there. Arse cheeks, thighs, calves, ankles, feet, toes. That's the order I use. There's nothing special about that order. I've just made it up. You could do it any way you want, however you feel comfortable. But yeah, that's it. So face. Feel my face. Become conscious of all the muscles in my face, and then just try and it's just a letting go feeling. You're not doing anything apart from just you becoming aware of the muscles in that area, and just sort of imagining letting go, relaxing them, imagining the tension coming out from being released from that part of the body. And so then you move through all those body parts, all those muscle groups. And then, so from face to feet. And then I'll find that by the time I circle back, so get down to my feet and then start my face again, I've sort of inadvertently tensed up again, unconsciously. And for me, it tends to be my hands and my face. They're the two that, as soon as when my attention is on those parts of my body, I can quite easily release the tension from them. But then I move my attention away and I'm unconsciously tensing up again. And so what I tend to do is I tend to do that full body cycle twice. And then from there on, it's kind of like playing whack-a-mole. Because like my back, my stomach, my chest, my legs, they tend to stay relaxed after I've been through those cycles twice. They tend to stay relaxed for the entire duration. Like I say, my face, my hands, my neck, my feet, I kind of play whack-a-mole with them. And it's just jumping from one body part to another, just trying to constantly increase the level of physical relaxation. And I find this better than following my breathing or saying a mantra, because it's like a proactive exercise. Like it requires concentration, but no actual thought. So it doesn't get boring in the same way that just focusing on your breath does. Like with something like Vipassana, you're focusing on your breath. It's so easy to get distracted, and sort of inadvertently you can spend like the whole session caught up in thought, and then by the time your timer goes, you've not even realised that you've been off somewhere else or whatever. So there's something like I say, there's something proactive and you concentrate, but there's no actual cognitive thought involved, so it's still relaxing. And then, I mean, I'm not sure you'd be able to do this if you were just starting off with 5 minutes, but for me, I do 20, 30 minutes, I tend to feel like I've by about 15 minutes in, I feel completely relaxed. And then I just try and sit with it, okay? And that's just sit there with your eyes closed and let your mind drift. So one of the fundamental aspects of meditation is this idea of focusing on your breath, and then when your attention wanders, you bring the attention back to your breath, and then your attention wanders again, and then you bring it back to your breath. And that's fine. It's a good exercise to learn, but it's you learn that eventually. If you're just beginning meditation, you're just trying to get into it, I'd say scrap that for now. For now, just sit with your eyes closed. Once you relax, sit with your eyes closed and just let your mind drift. Let it go, and whatever comes up, doesn't matter what comes up, work, email, sex, Game of Thrones, whatever, just go with it. Don't try and stop it, yeah? But don't try and steer it either. Don't do anything with it. Like the best analogy I've heard when it comes to this is like, if you imagine your thoughts are like ripples on the surface of a pond, and if you try and reach into the pond and stop them, like flatten the ripples out with your hands, you just create more ripples. And so that's kind of how I think of this, is just don't get involved. So for me, it's even this idea of when your attention's wandered, bringing yourself back to centre, to me that's sort of interfering. So just don't do anything, just sit there with your eyes closed, see where it takes you, go along for the ride. Also, like if you need to itch, get an itchy nose, itchy bollocks or whatever, yeah, itch them. Fine, don't worry about it. If you need to open your eyes for whatever reason, yeah, that doesn't need, you haven't ruined the session, okay? Just close them again and keep going. You don't have to start again, just keep going. And that's it, and then sit there and just wait for the time to go off, and that's pretty much it. That's it. That's the sit the fuck down, shut the fuck up, and relax technique. Like I say, you can get a bit more advanced with it, but I think this is a good way for people to get into it, because I think, like I say, I think the biggest hurdle for people is this idea of learning to control your mind or to completely empty your mind of thoughts. And that's not the goal of meditation anyway. But I just think when you completely throw that idea out altogether, completely take it off the table, that's not what we're doing here. It's just it's more like a physical relaxation exercise that's sort of more about the body than it is the mind. I just think it's a good little it's a good way of getting into meditation. So yeah, have a crack at that. Let me know how it goes. Right, okay, so fucking hell, I mean, I said I was gonna only do an hour. How long have we done here? 48, 50, 1 hour, 8. I've done like an hour and 15 or something like that. So, okay. So final one is, so yeah, same person that sent me the Would You Rather challenge from BuzzFeed last time has sent me a list of truth or dare questions. So like I said, I've got rid of some of the, I've got rid of all the dare questions because, well, I can't do them sat here on my own. It'd be odd for me and completely unentertaining for you. And some of the truth questions don't work because they involve like people in the room. Like, is there anybody in the room? If you had to have sex with somebody in the room, who would you pick? That sort of thing. And also, there's a lot of sex-related stuff in this truth bullshit. So I've got rid of some of the more boring ones of them. And so we've been left with but we've got how many? 35 questions. I ain't doing 35 questions. We're gonna have to split them up into two, and I'll do the other 15 or so next time. So, right, okay, bit of fun to close things out. So I noticed as well some of these have been adapted to involve my past guests, and that the first one is, if you had to hook up with one of your past guests, who would it be? Well, I've got to go for Jessica Graham, haven't I? So if you're not familiar with Jessica, she I spoke to her on, I think it was episode 36. We talked about sex. Hang on, I'll bring it up. Sex, spirituality, and self-consciousness. And one of the more memorable lines in there, and I'm paraphrasing, but it's pretty accurate. She said that she was the type of girl that likes to be taken to a swingers club and say, "Let's get something in every hole." So, yeah, she's a pretty safe bet to answer number one with. So, yeah. If I could hook up with one of my past guests, who would it be? Jessica Graham. What's your number two? What's your most embarrassing secret? This is one of those questions where, as soon as I say it, an answer immediately springs to mind. But yeah, I'm not sure I'm willing to share that one. I mean, there's two issues with the premise of that question, isn't there? There's the most embarrassing secret. So not only am I expected, obviously a secret for a reason. Okay, it's a secret. Nobody knows about it. So I'm being asked to reveal a secret. But not only am I being asked to reveal a secret, but I'm being asked to reveal my most embarrassing secret. And I just think it's a step too far, that one. Yeah, I can't do it. I tell you what, I'll do you a deal, right? If one of you lot email in your most embarrassing secret, then I'll revisit this question. But it's got to be impressive, and it's got to be something I can read out on air or on the podcast or whatever. I won't give your name out, of course, but yeah, if you one of you will share something, I'll share something. But that's asking too much, and it's only question 2. Jesus. Right, question 3. Have you ever told a lie to try and impress someone? I'm sure I have, especially as a teenager when... Well, everyone's a lying little shit when they're a teenager, aren't they? Nothing's springing to mind on this one. I get... One thing I did used to do, I'm not sure this is quite the same. One thing I used to do is, when I was working as a driver for the escort agencies, I'd sometimes... It's like you're dropping girls off at hotels, sometimes for hours at a time. And so one way of killing time, especially at hotels, would be to go into the hotel bar and get a drink and just sort of wait around, try and kill time. One thing I used to do occasionally, I didn't do it all the time. When I was really bored, I would go and talk to people in hotel bars and lie, and just tell lies the hotels are sort of full of travelling business people, the people you're never going to run into again. A lot of bored people just want a bit of company or whatever. But there's there's no history between you. There's not even any context there. You're just two people that have met in a bar and you're never going to see each other ever again. And so I just used to make up stories, life stories. I'd get talking to people and they'd say, oh, why are you here in the bar or whatever? Or where are you from? And I'd just make up stories. I'd lie about working for like finance companies or whatever, or like being an entrepreneur, or I've got a business and this, that, and the other. No, nothing ever too elaborate. I mean, to be honest, I wish I'd sort of pushed the boundaries a bit more to see what I could get away with. If I could go back and do it now, I would tell really elaborate lies and just see how far I could push it before the person started looking at me like, okay, this guy's obviously fucking insane. But I didn't do that. I just used to sort of like telling little lies, and because they ask you a question and then you answer it and you tell a lie, and then they ask a follow-up question which delves deeper into it. And it was just sort of a way of I wasn't trying to impress anybody. I wasn't telling lies. Even when I was like talking to women or whatever, I was never telling lies to impress them. Even when I was like saying that I was an entrepreneur or had started a business or an inventor or whatever, it wasn't to impress the other person. It was just to lie. It was for my own entertainment. And the last time I lied to impress someone, I genuinely can't remember. I genuinely can't remember doing that for a long time. So, yeah, not a very interesting answer, but it'll have to do. Have you ever been a thief? Number 4, have you ever been a thief and stolen something? Well, as a robbing little twat when I was a teenager, always robbing stuff out like the supermarkets and stuff. What's most? Oh, we robbed something the other day. It's not too bad, right? Me and Leanne took the kids to the park last week, and it was blazing hot. Okay, and we went through to there was a cafe there, and they had like an ice cream stand outside, and the cafe's dead busy, which is why we thought, oh, bollocks to this, we'll go to just get an ice cream. I went to the ice cream stand, we ordered our ice creams for us and the kids. There's 4 of us, and the girl at the counter couldn't get the card machine working, so she says, oh, you're gonna have to go inside and pay in there instead. So it's like, right. And so we went in the cafe and we stood in the line at the cafe for ages, and it's blazing hot, and I'm carrying Hope, and she's like, 14 months old now. She weighs a bleeding ton, and she's getting dead aggy. She's a right arsey little bitch, let me tell you. She wants to be put down. She wants to be walking around and stuff. So she's getting arsey with me. It's red hot. The line isn't going down. We're trying to get someone's attention. Say, we're not waiting to be served like these idiots. We just want to pay for the pissing ice creams. And we wasn't getting anyone's attention. So I just saw my ass and went, oh, bollocks to this. Now, my intention when I walked out, I wasn't saying, bollocks to it, let's nick the ice creams and just not pay. What I was saying is, Leanne, you stay in line and pay, but I'm getting the fuck out of here because I can't handle it. Because Hope's doing my head in and I'm sweating my ass off. So I storm out, but when I turn round, Leanne and Roman are following us out. So she's the robbing bastard. So Leanne, I was a thief because of Leanne. She was supposed to pay. She went on the rob, and so I ended up stealing something because of her. So that's the last time I robbed something. What's the most deviant thing you have ever done? Deviant. What do we mean by deviant? Let's have a look here. Let's get an exact. See, deviant, it's one of them that's, and because this is truth or dare, it's got like sexual connotations, hasn't it? So let's get a actual definition of deviant. Deviating or departing from the norm. A person or thing that deviates or departs markedly from the accepted norm. The most deviant thing I've ever done. I don't know. I mean, if you've been listening to this podcast in a length of time, you know most of them. Like I've just said, I was a robbing little shit when I was a kid. I've worked in brothels. I've worked in an escort agency. I've taken drugs. So, I mean, they're all deviant things. But you've heard all them before. I tell you what, this is going to sound like I'm being sarcastic, but openly declaring myself a conservative, I think that's quite deviant. And I'm not being facetious in saying that. I think, especially not just nowadays, with the way politics is, politics very progressive, very left-wing dominated media and all that. But particularly this sector in which I operate, mental health, it's not a subject that is either associated with or very accepting of conservative attitudes, I don't think. And so, I won't say it's the most deviant thing I've ever done, but yeah, with the release of the interview I did with Tom O'Carroll on paedophilia a couple of weeks ago, that sort of forced me to show my hand during the introduction to that episode. I really needed to let people know where I stood on that issue, and that involved me openly declaring myself to be politically conservative. And I think it'll be interesting to see how that plays out for me. I've noticed that when I interview people, one of the questions that I have at the end of my interviews during the quickfire questions is, if you could take the reins of power at the Department of Health, what policy would you implement to improve the mental well-being of the general public? And I'd say 90% of the answers that I get on that are very left-wing answers. And so my silence on when those answers come out, I think people assume I'm on the left, and I'm very much not. And so, like I say, it'll be interesting to see how that plays out for me, because I don't know of any other conservative people in the mental health space. So, in doing so, in declaring that about myself, I might have put myself at a deficit in some way or other. But we'll see. Okay, number 6, you're not having this. What's your craziest sexual fantasy? You got a fucking no chance. I won't even tell Leanne that one. Number 7, have you ever been extremely rude to someone you know? Of course I have. But have I got any good stories about it? Well, sort of. So, even though I'm a bit of a gobshite, my mum and dad were never that sweary. I must have got it from my mates and stuff, because I've got a right mouth on me. My parents were never that way. And there's 2 words. My mum will never, ever, and I've never heard her say the C word, but the F word as well. She won't say that one, right? However, she said it once. And I remember I must have been about 14 at the time, and I was going through a bit of a cocky phase. I'd started swearing at my parents a bit and, getting a bit cocky. And me and my mum was arguing about something one day, and I stormed upstairs, and she's carrying on shouting at me as I'm going up, and I went, "Oh, fuck off." And then she turned around and she went, "No, you fuck off." Like, she went mental and screamed it at me. And I was so shocked that it just, the impact of it, because she's never said it. And the reason I told her to fuck off was because it was my way of getting one over on her. It's like, I know you're not going to go this far, so fuck off. But then she turned it round and said it even more vicious and louder than I said it. And the fact that she'd never said it before and I'd never heard her say it before, it floored me. And it's like she just instantly won the argument with that because I was just speechless, didn't know what to say. So, but yeah, that's not cool. I'm not. It's quite a fun little anecdote, but I am a bit embarrassed about the fact that I ever spoke to my mum like that. It's not cool. So, yeah, that's pretty bad. Do you have anything hidden? Number 8. Do you have anything hidden in your house that no one knows about? I've got weapons hidden in the house that I guess Leanne will know about some of them, but she won't know about all of them. But that's all I can think of. And I don't say that in any sort of like rebellious or aren't I a badass type way or anything like that. I'm just I'm super conscious about that. The idea of like our next door neighbour, they've been broken into loads of times, and one time they were broken in. Someone broke in and robbed the house. Well, this is the neighbours that before these ones that live here now, the family that lived here before. But while the teenage girl was upstairs in the bedroom on her own, 2 guys broke in and robbed the house, and it happened about 4 times to them right next door to us. And so I'm just, especially now that I've got kids. So yeah, I've got no matter what room I'm in, and depending on the size of the room, like this the living room, if I get someone breaks in while I'm at the front or at the back of the room, there are weapons hidden for me to defend myself or my kids. So Leanne knows I've got weapons stashed, but there are definitely some that she doesn't know. I'm not hiding anything from her, just haven't told her, like, oh, by the way, there's a fucking, like an 8-inch knife round there for you to grab if you need it. So, yeah. Number 9, here we go, sex questions. Have you ever had sex with someone you didn't like? Yeah, my ex-girlfriend. I won't name her, won't be a knob, but yeah, we carried on having sex, even though we reached the stage where we didn't talk, we didn't hang out with each other, we didn't share anything, we didn't even kiss or hug. Like, there was no affection there whatsoever. But yeah, we still had a bash every now and again, like you do. So, yeah. Number 11. If you could somehow become a woman, what's the first thing you would do? This is going to sound pathetic and immature for a 35-year-old man, but it's the God's honest truth. If I could turn myself into a woman, the first thing I would do is strip ass naked and just do star jumps in front of a mirror. Just genuinely what I'd do. I'd like to, I would love to come up with something more sophisticated and philosophical than that, but I'd be lying. You know, I could say something like, oh, I'd like to go out and, you know, see whether I could get a job somewhere and see whether, you know, institutional sexism really does exist. You know, do exactly the same thing that I'd do as a male, but see if I'd get treated differently as a female, blah, 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 little social experiment or whatever. But it's bollocks, because the first thing I'd do is I'd just want to see everything jiggling about in all its glory. Okay, number 12. Have you ever been caught doing something embarrassing in public? No, I haven't. I'm going to be repeating a story here, but in case you haven't heard it, when I was 16, I got my tongue pierced, and at Tony's tattoo parlour in Stockport. I'll just tell it quickly. And so yeah, I got my tongue pierced, but I got the numbing spray on my tongue, and it numbs all your tongue or your mouth, so you can't actually feel it when you get the needle in. And anyway, so I'm walking back from Tony's to the bus stop to go home, walking through the town centre of Stockport, and I wanted everybody to see that I'd had my tongue pierced. I wanted all the girls to see. So I started playing with it in my mouth, you know, like sticking the stud out through my lips and playing with it and sort of rattling it along my teeth or whatever. Just trying to get people to see it. I was getting loads of attention, like loads of girls and stuff were looking at me, and I was thinking, fucking hell, this is pussy magnet, this. So anyway, I get to the bus stop, and there's like a queue waiting for the bus, and then all the people there are looking at me as well, and I'm thinking, it's getting a bit intense, this. I started to feel a bit paranoid, like everybody was looking at me, not just girls, everyone. Anyway, so I turned to look at myself in my reflection in the bus shelter, in the glass in the bus shelter, and I was covered in blood, because obviously I'd just had my tongue pierced, so my tongue was pouring with blood, but because my mouth was numb, I couldn't feel anything, and I'm there licking my lips like an idiot trying to show this tongue stud off, but all I was doing was spitting blood all over my chin, and it dripped. It was all around my mouth, it was dripping from my chin, it was all over my jumper. I basically looked like I'd been down on an elephant during that time of the month. It was disgusting, and yeah, that was embarrassing. Okay, number 13. Have you ever had an awkward bathroom experience? It's got bathroom in quotation marks. I don't know what that means. An awkward bathroom experience. I'm assuming it's something like if you ever shit yourself. So no, nothing like that. I've got a tenuous link to a bathroom experience though. So once when me, Leanne, this is when we only had Rome, and Rome was a baby, and we took him to Lytham St Anne's near Blackpool, which is like a coastal town with arcades and all that stuff there. And we took him, and he must have only been about 1.5 or something like that anyway. And he's sort of playing. He's playing on all the little rides and stuff. And then I think he shat himself, and he needed his nappy changed. And so Leanne went off to the bathroom. She needed to go to the bathroom, and I was going to take him to the car to change his nappy. But because I'd whipped him off the ride that he was playing on, that he was having fun on, he went apeshit and started crying. But at the time, for some reason, he'd learned the word help. So whenever he was upset, like he told him off for being a little shit, throwing his food around, climbing on the TV unit or whatever, whenever you told him off and he started crying because he was being told off, he shouted help. Right? I don't know where he got it from. But anyway, so I'm running out to the car. I've got a baby in my arms. I'm running out to the car because he shit himself. And I haven't got Leanne with me because she's gone to the bathroom. And this baby is screaming, crying its eyes out, shouting, help, help, help. And I'm like a 30-odd-year-old man running through a crowd of people with a baby in my arms, and everyone looking at me like, oh my God, there's a paedophile running off with a baby. So, yeah, again, another embarrassing public situation. But yeah, that was definitely an awkward bathroom experience. Okay, I'm just going to do 2 more. What are we on? 14. Do you have any secret habits that would make people think you were gross? I don't, I'm not one of those. I'm not an ass picker. I'm not a nose picker. I don't sort of consume my own bodily fluids after I've scooped them out of a particular orifice, like some people do. So, I mean, I bite my fingernails, but it's not a secret habit. I'll do that wherever I am, not bothered. So, no, I'm too much of a upstanding member of society to give you a decent answer on that one, I'm afraid. And finally, what's the grossest thing you've ever had to do? Oh, God, do I answer this one? I can. I've got two disgusting stories. Genuinely disgusting. They're both from my escapades in the sex industry. But I can't. I tell you what, if you email me, the few people that are subscribed to this podcast and that are going to listen to this episode, if maybe 3 of you email me and say no, I want that story, then I'll tell it. But I can't. It's genuinely disgusting, the one I'm thinking of, and I think it's inappropriate. It's I'd feel genuinely uncomfortable telling this story without permission. So I can't end on that note, can I? Let me have a quick flick through. What can I give you a good one to finish on here? Oh, perfect. Okay, number 33. We'll substitute this one. What's the biggest lie you've ever told? Oh, this is pathetic. Oh, man. Right. This is another one that makes me cringe because it's just like, how did you think you was going to get away with this? But then again, actually, I don't know if this is unreasonable. Let me know. So, I don't know how old I was when I tried pulling this shit off. But, yeah, I've always been one of those where whenever I see me ass with a job, I make a snap decision. I'm not one of these people that'll allow a job to eat away at me for a long time before I finally get pushed over the edge. I'm very quick to make a snap judgment. It's like the first time a job pisses me off, I just quit. And so I was working for a cleaning company, a place called Alderley Edge, which is like, it's a place in Cheshire where it's a posh area, and it's where like a lot of the footballers and stuff like that play for Man United, Man City. It's where they all live and where all the mansions are and stuff. So I was working for this cleaning company that cleaned around there with all these big houses and stuff. And to be honest, I can't remember why I quit. I can't remember why I saw my ass. I've seen my ass with that many jobs for that many different reasons. But I just remember, yeah, one morning, I couldn't be asked getting out of bed. It was like, oh, I'm not going. Can't be asked. I quit. And then when I didn't turn up, the manager, the woman who owned it, she rang me up and she was like, where are you? And I was just like, oh, I can't be asked. I've quit. And she was like, right, fine, whatever. And then I think it must have been I tried finding another job. I could usually just jump from one job to another without a problem. But after quitting this one, I couldn't find another job, even like agency work. I just couldn't get it. And I think it must have been about like, I don't know, maybe 2 weeks, a month later or whatever. I was looking through the jobs paper and that cleaning company was advertising for cleaners. They wanted to recruit some cleaners. So I couldn't bring myself to just ring up and say, oh, I'm sorry. Could I have my job back? And I promise I'll be a bit more reliable. Instead, I rang up, applied for the job, and they gave me a job interview. And I gave a different name. And I turned up for the job interview and pretended to be my own twin brother. And, oh God, I can't remember what my name was. I'm guessing it was, if they knew me as Danny, I probably went for Donny or something because I thought that sounded twin-like. So I walked in there as Donny and sat down for the interview, and I just remember the woman's face was just like, what? She knew. And obviously I hadn't told them, before I turned up for the interview, I didn't ring up and say, oh, I'm Danny's twin brother. I just said my name's Donny or whatever. Turned up, I walked through the door, her fucking face is the picture. I sat down, and I can't remember how it went, but she obviously didn't challenge me straight away. I think she was too gobsmacked that I just turned up with this different name. And then I just went into this spiel about, I knew the job was going because my brother had knocked it on the head the other week. And then she didn't pull me up on it. But I don't think it's because she was like, oh, maybe this is his twin brother. I think it was like, oh my God, this guy is fucking mental. Like, let's just go along with it in case he gets angry and fucking pulls out a gun or something. So she's just sort of went along with the story. And I'm saying, yeah, my brother, he's a bit of a wanker, like he's unreliable and that. But I'm nothing like him. Like, we look like each other, we are twins and stuff, but like we don't, like behaviour wise, personality wise, are completely different from each other. And yeah, funnily enough, I didn't get the job. And I just remember thinking afterwards, like, what? How was that going to go? Like, imagine that lie, like keeping that lie going. That I'm Donnie Whitaker, and my brother used to work here, and yeah, so fucking what an idiot, man. I have my moments, I tell you. Bold though, that's a bold lie. I'm proud of that one. Like that's some barefaced cheek. That turning up in front of you, sitting down, staring your boss in the eye. That you've just quit the job, told to stick a job up her ass 2 weeks ago, and then sit down in front of her and be like, yeah, I'm not Danny, I'm Donnie. Can I have a job? So, yeah, quite proud of that one. Anyway, I think that's enough for this week. It's like 30 odd questions in this bleeding list you've sent me. So we've done like 15 of them or something like that. We'll carry the other ones over till next month for next one. But we'll see. Anyway, I've had enough. You've had enough. I'll see you next time.